Hi. Um, so I promised I was kind of done with the narrative part, the biography part of what I was talking about, which is true. What I wanted to do today was try and shorten up the main points, in particular to the court system, because I think it's important for people to understand what they're getting into, whether they're on the plaintiff side of the office or the defendant side of the office. And this counts in pretty much everything. I mean, I can go over domestics, I can go over custody, I can go over criminal case courts or protection orders. I've been through pretty much all of them, and I've been on both sides of the aisle. Um, I can even go over juvenile courts, and that one I was not privy to personally. However, my stepchildren were, so I understand that one too, because as the custodial parent, you have to be present for those. So I think it's important for people to understand, because I keep running into this problem where, people will come to me and they'll say, I'm facing this situation, but this isn't working the way I thought it was. Because they all have the misconception of what court should be. In their minds, court should work the same way as they see on TV. Law and Order. Even the criminal documentaries will show snippets of different court cases. Unless you've actually watched the entire O.J. Simpson, you would not know that that whole case lasted practically a year, and those people wanted to go home. I mean, in the end, they voted not guilty because they had said, if you actually watch the documentary with the jurors, they're saying this lasted forever. It was nonsensical. They were also very poor. They didn't have family. The jurors that they picked were not, able to. I've been picked to be for jury duty twice too, as well. So I also know that they pay you a very minimal amount, and you are required to go. You can't dodge that. It's a wonder people, it is your duty to go and, listen to court cases and do the best you can. But a lot of people will lie their way out of jurors. They'll claim that they're racist or something in order to get out of it. But I've also seen it where people have said I've flat out insulted the DA, and I wasn't dismissed. I was picked. When I was first picked for jury duty, it was literally the week before the pandemic. And I got there, and, they expect you to take off work. You have to tell your boss, hey, I got picked for jury duty, you gotta go. And then when you get there, they give you, in my case, let me just disclosure here. Most of the stuff has happened in Pennsylvania. I've had a few incidents happen in Ohio, so your state may be different. Hopefully it is, because frankly, I don't like these courts and the way they handle things. So again, disclosure. Pennsylvania, Ohio. Thank you. Anyway, so I get in there and they hand me a little pamphlet. Inside this pamphlet is a Visa card, and they're telling us that everybody gets like $7 to compensate you. So you can't get, if you have a full-time job and you're making $15, $16, $17, $20, they are not going to compensate you for that. They will not compensate you for that amount of money at all. So you're going to have lost wages. So imagine the O.J. Simpson. You are already poor. You're struggling day to day, and they're telling you, you got to come in here. They lock you in a hotel. You can't get out. You can't talk to anybody. You don't even have a phone, because if you talk to somebody, you could be influenced the wrong way. So you are literally kept from your family. And I believe it was the week before Christmas that they made that not guilty. And they said because they wanted to go home to their families. They couldn't imagine missing Christmas with them. They'd already missed everything else. So they just wanted to go home. And I mean, they actually went through quite a few what they call alternative jurors, where, there's one juror that actually, at first they were all voting guilty except one, and then they found out that one was an issue, and then everybody started voting not guilty because they just didn't want to deal with that one anymore. And then the judge just wouldn't let them, declare a mistrial. It would just forget it. And I mean, that's Florida. So, if that's the way Florida treats their people, probably the same as Pennsylvania. Can't say for sure, but I do know from watching all the documentaries, hearing the jurors. So when you're watching a documentary on a court case, you are seeing snippets. You are not seeing the whole trial. The trials can last a day, or they can last a year. Sometimes they can go into mistrial, and then you have to redo the whole thing over again. And they also don't jump like Law and Order. This is not Law and Order. You do not go in with a crime and have them on your case, and maybe by the end of the week you're in court. That's not how it works. These cops take their time. Deliberately or unintentionally, they take their time. 1, they're overworked. 2, they don't care half the time. I mean, I've met a few cops that are actually decent, so I'm not saying all cops. I like a good handful of them, and I've sat down with the Brookfield department to discuss somebody who's in a domestic situation and in danger, and they listened to me, which is nice. Nice change of pace, rather than, sorry, I don't know what you want from me. So you get a little bit of mix. They've already got a bias. They're not supposed to, but they do. They do have a bias. Domestics are a big issue for them. They're the biggest annoyance for that department. You can literally call in for anything. You can call in. I have seen it where somebody wrecked in front of my house. They didn't just wreck. They spun out into a field behind me. And they got out of their car, they looked at their car, they got back in, and they started trying to get out of the field. They were literally like driving, and they're practically on their side. I'm assuming that at this point this person is probably drunk, and they're getting back in their car. I called 911 dispatch to say there's been an accident, and this person is stuck, and I'm concerned about his state of mind, because frankly, he's not getting the fact that he's in a very bad situation. It'd be better for him to get out of the car and go find help, but he's trying to get in the car and leave. And this 911 operator is telling me on the phone, can you go and tell him to stay there? I'm like, he's already back in the car. And they said, well, stop him. I was like, hello, I don't even know who this person is. What do you mean go stop them? So now they're putting me in danger. They're not supposed to do that. That's really bad situation right there. 911 is supposed to gather information as best they can. They're not supposed to tell you to go put yourself into danger. Like, oh yeah, the guy is in his car, he's trying to take off, go over there and get him out of the car. Excuse me? No. Bad. Do not do that. I don't care. I told that operator, I'm not doing that. Are you crazy? No, send an officer. What are you doing? So, I mean, number one, there's the basis of your thing. You call 911 and you get a dispatcher that's just like, meh. I mean, they're required to calm you down, but some of them are just assholes. I mean, let's just put it bluntly. They act like you're making it up half the time. They'll call their officer, their dispatch, and, they'll do their whole coding thing, but at the same time, they're going to be like, domestic situation, this person sounds like they're crazy. They will give their opinion as to what they're assuming is happening. They won't just tell the officer what is being said. They'll give their opinion of it. Or they won't give the officer anything except their opinion of it. They'll be like, this is what we classified as, and this is what we think is happening, instead of what the person is saying is happening. This is how people end up dead. right at the beginning, the dispatch is supposed to know and gather information and do things correctly. Sometimes they even get the wrong county, and then they'll send the cops to the wrong address, and then later they'll find that the person got killed because you sent them to the wrong place. And yeah, maybe it's just a fluke. Maybe. 9 times out of 10, it's not. It's arrogance, and it's flat out stupidity. The 911 operators, when they hire you, they want you to be able to handle pressure and screaming people in your ears and, 3 computer screens. Can you go fast enough? Can you type fast enough? That's pretty much their main thing. Can you do multitasking without getting emotional? Yeah, some people can. They can really detach. That's also sometimes bad. Because if you're not in the moment, now, again, sometimes emotions can mess with you. But if you're completely detached, completely numb to the situation, it doesn't even matter to you that that person is in real danger. It's just more like a script at that point. You're not the one in danger. The 911 operator's not in danger. You are. And they're reading a script. So, problem at the beginning here. So, let's just say the cops get there. Now you have problem number 2. Trying to convince them of anything that just happened. If you have a bad person around you, they know. They already know. They know exactly what to say. They know the words to use because they're bad. Bad guys aren't stupid. Criminals are not stupid. You got a handful that get a little arrogant and then they get caught. But they're not stupid. They know that the cops are the ones that they have to convince. And all they got to do is settle down and say, officer, they'll start to put the blame on themselves a little bit. They'll say, I'm so sorry that you had to come out here. See, now they're trying to butter up the cop. And you had the other person screaming. The person who's been victimized. They're screaming. They're emotional. And you have the cop saying, calm down, ma'am. Calm down, sir. You need to calm down. Excuse me? You're listening to that person instead of me, and I'm the one in danger. I called you. I mean, literally, this is how victims end up in this situation. And why domestics is such a bad one. You are the one screaming. You are the one emotional. You are the one needing help. And you got the cop over there acting like, it's not a big deal and that you're the problem. You need to calm down. You're the emotional one. Meanwhile, the criminal over there is buttering up the cop, being friends with them, even maybe giggling with them a little bit, throwing some jokes around. You'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry you had to come out here. I bet you come out here all the time. Now, this is also a therapy script that is very good for de-escalating situations. However, criminals know that. This is what people don't understand. Those therapy things that you go through, that a therapist is trying to work with you, the victim, to calm you down, is what the criminal knows how to do. They've learned this. I don't know where they've learned it. Could be, watching it. They could be studying it. They could have seen, this interaction with the therapist in their life. And frankly, sorry, there's a button here. It's like, stop. Whatever. I don't care. They know what to do. They know what to say. They know how to act. They're very good at slipping into the role of, I don't know what you're talking about. There is no criminal that you see on Law & Order that's emotional. I mean, they might be a little bit. I've seen it a few times where they act like they're the victim. Oh, it's very easy for them to slip into that role too. You know, they're crying a little bit. They forced out the tears. I don't know what to do anymore. I understand that they start to butter up the cop again. I understand that you're coming out here. I really need help and I don't know what to do. So that happens sometimes. This is where the man gets into trouble. And he didn't even do anything. Usually in domestic, one-on-one with a woman and a man. Now, I'm not talking about just husband and wives. I've seen this with a grandmother versus a grandson. The grandmother knows exactly what to do. She calls the police. She sits there and acts like she's the one in danger. Oh, he's threatening me. He's harassing me. He just won't come out of my room. I'm so scared. I have this liver condition. My knees are bad, and I just can't get out of the room. And he keeps coming and screaming, and I'm getting scared. I don't know I need a break. I don't know how to get him out of the house. I've asked him to leave. See, now they're presenting options that they've selected. They have said, I have given them the option for a ride to this place. I've put myself on the line to help them out, and they are not accepting my help. They're just continuously coming at me. It's all a lie. It's all a lie. But they got no problem saying it, because they're criminals. They don't care. They're trying to get out of their own crap. I've seen it where there was a protection order that was granted. Now, I'll tell you why it was granted. Because the guy didn't show up for court. He didn't know. He didn't know. Because they sent it to the wrong address. So when the court proceeding happened with the protection order, the woman got it. It was granted. She used it as a weapon after that. She called the police almost weekly. One time the man was at my house, and the police came knocking on the door. And they're like, "Sir, were you over at so-and-so's house today?" "No, they've been here all day." "Well, they said that you're outside their window throwing rocks." It's like, well, I'm here. "Well, sir, please just stay away from them." I've seen it where a woman has harassed a man at 3 a.m. with text messages. They will sit there and they'll blabber on in text messages, and then the moment the man responds with, "I don't know what you want from me. You guys got to stop texting me," because like it's a separated couple or they're divorced or something. The woman will say, "If you text me back, I'm going to call the police because you're harassing me now. I'm responding to your texts. You've sent me like 20. I've sent one, and I'm telling you to stop." "Oh, that's right. I'm calling the police." Next thing you know, you get a phone call from the cops. And they're saying, "Sir, we have a report that you've been harassing your ex-wife." "No." "Well, she's pretty adamant that she feels like she's in fear, and I need you to really stop communicating with her." That's really hard to do when there's kids involved. So in this case, the man says, "Officer, I didn't contact her. She woke me up with her 20 text messages at 3 a.m. I responded to them. I did not threaten her. I can show you the phone." See, this is the thing criminals don't like. They don't like when you got evidence. They can say stuff, but it's very hard for them to manufacture evidence the way you can. Don't delete texts. Take video. Do what you can to document. When a cop tells you to document, that's a good cop, because you need to do that. Because in this case, and the cop didn't even bother to come over, by the way. He just said at the end of the phone call, "Well, sir, if she keeps calling back and saying that you're harassing her, we may have to come over there and press charges." "Excuse me, I'm not harassing her. You can come in. I will let you have access to my phone. You can see my call logs. I don't care. I'm going to prove the fact that I didn't do anything." And I responded to her 3 times. The cop still says, "Well, sir, please just stop communicating with her." This is why people end up with trauma. Because they are not believed. That's the biggest one. You know, the trauma itself is horrible. But what's worse is the interrogation by the people who are supposed to protect you. And just the way they treat you. I have another case. This is a criminal case. Not a big one, but big enough. So, this woman stole a credit card that belonged to a child. And he was receiving Social Security disability, right? So that money is in what we call in Pennsylvania a PUTMA account. It means, you know, it's a minor account. That the money that goes in is only to be used on the child. And you're not allowed to use it for anything else. You can't go shopping for yourself or, you know, go on a spa treatment with it. You can't do any of that. You have to spend that money on the kid. His shoes, her shoes, whatever they are. But that money has to go to them. Anything to do with them. Now that also includes like bills, you know, like electric, rent, things like that. That's taking care of them. So don't think I mean material objects. The bills of the house that you put them in, yes, that is also what you spend it on. This person took this card while the mom was incapacitated. Like literally incapacitated. She was dying. In fact, she died a few weeks later. And I shouldn't say a few weeks. This went up between February and May. She died in May. But she was on bed rest from February to May because she had a tumor that grew into her spine, and her spine actually separated so she couldn't walk. And they had to put a plate in her back. It was bad. She wasn't there anymore. So this person, not even a relative, took this card. And they went shopping. From the moment I saw the bank statements, withdraw, $400 out of the bank, because that's the max you can actually pull out a day per bank. Some are a little higher, but mostly it's $400. And then they went shopping. And occasionally they use the card. $200 at Walmart, about $100 at Reebok, I believe. And they spent like $80 at Taco Bell. Who spends $80 at Taco Bell? I went to the police, and they said to me, there's nothing we can do. This is a lawsuit case. No, it's fraud. Well, you should just hire an attorney. I went to an attorney for a lawsuit. You know what they said? This is a criminal case. This is fraud. No, duh! But you try telling the cops that. I had to go through 4 cops and 2 attorneys. And I mean, they were like no payment attorneys because I was poor as dirt around that time. But I needed to get that money back. She stole $6,000. It's not like $20. It's $6,000 of his money that was meant for him. I am his custodian. The moment I saw that, I went through 4 cops and 2 attorneys looking for somebody to listen to me. I had to go to another town over to where Mom used to live. And, I mean, I'd already gone there first, but they told me that because I live in a different city, I need to call my city cops. And my city cop said, this is not our city cop situation. And plus, we don't think it's, you know, again, fraud. Idiots. And so I had to request an upper rank person. So when I got on 911 again, and they wouldn't listen to me, I walked into that office and I said, look, I need to talk to somebody, and I don't want a cop. I don't want a basic officer. I want their supervisor. This is the Karen thing to do. This is what you need to do. with the police officers. You need the lieutenant, the corporal, whoever is above them. So in this case, I got a corporal. Thank God that man has a brain. Best man ever. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, some cops are good. He retired after this case. He told me this was his last case, and he'll always remember it. I'll always remember it. Because it was ridiculous. You shouldn't have to fight so hard for what's obvious. He went over there and he questioned the woman, asking her, where are all these expenses coming from? The bank even agreed with me it was fraud, although I was kind of a little confused as to why the bank allowed it to happen. Like, how can you just let $6,000 slip away? Some of this is literally her going into the bank and getting the money herself. How can she do that? Her name's not even on the card. She walked around with a, quote, power of attorney that she printed off the internet. And because the cop said it looked legit, because it looked complicated, he believed it to be true. He didn't even verify it. He literally flipped through the page. I watched him. He flipped through the pages. About 4 or 5 pages back to back. And he said, well, it looks legit. Looks complicated. Looks like a power of attorney. No verification. Again, criminals know what they're doing. So this corporal, he went over there and he questioned her. And she sat there with a number of excuses. Oh, yes, I did buy all that Walmart stuff. It was groceries for him. And I got him new clothes because now she's got to produce receipts. Or in this case, I don't really need to do receipts because it's her word against mine. But the big one for him was the shoes. She had gone to Gabe's and he said, what is this $80 or pay less? I think it was. It's one of the shoe stores anyway. And there was like an $80 charge for these pairs of shoes. And he said, well, where are the shoes? Because I don't see them on him. And she said, oh, well, they didn't fit, so I took them back. He's like, well, then where's the refund? It was beyond the account. I don't see it here. And she's like, well, I just exchanged them for another pair for my son. He'd even tried to call her, I believe, 3 times before he'd actually gone to her apartment himself, and he had to get permission to leave the jurisdiction because she lives in a different town. And cops aren't allowed to cross the border. Now they do it, but this one was by the book, thankfully. So he's asking her, where are the receipts? And, why didn't you answer the call when I called you? She said, oh, I lost the phone. He said, oh, okay. So he did the thing that you all see on the Law and Order, which was really smart. He said, oh, okay. So he pulled his phone out of the pocket and he dialed the number. And guess what? It rang in her pocket. Love it. Anyway, so then he asked her where the $80 at Taco Bell is. How is that all for him? And she goes, oh, he eats a lot. He said nobody eats $80 worth of Taco Bell. You're going to go to the hospital. Oh, that was fun. That was the one that the cops giggled about. Because they're like, you bought a feast, basically. We know Taco Bell is reasonably cheap. No. $80 worth of Taco Bell. I spent $100 at McDonald's and I come back with like 3 bags. And I mean 3 all these size bags. But she thought she could get away with it. So I had this corporal and I was really grateful for him. Here was my next problem, dealing with the DA. He's an idiot. I'd already had dealings with him before. I was not happy to see him. In our area, despite what should be We don't have a grand jury. We don't have an IAB, or Internal Affairs Bureau. We can call the FBI. We can call our city commissioners. But honestly, the ADA is one of the city commissioners. How am I supposed to call them? He is one. What am I going to do? Tell them that their buddy is also bad? Do you think these cops care? No, they're friends with him. If he goes down, they go down. It literally is it's a tumble of dominoes. There's very few people who will challenge him. He is not for justice at all. He's out for himself. And I know this because of the way he treats people. His whole thing, he's first of all the son of our main DA. There are a few ADAs that are women I do like, because they are about, the right and the wrong. But this ADA, you have to be worth his time. So this is how I know. All right. So I show up. It's court time, right? I'm prepared for the preliminary because the corporal's gone out of his way. He has done all the research. He's gone to the stores. He's sat down with me. We have talked it out. He's talked to my stepson. We have all had a great conversation and gathered as much evidence. The bank has provided statements saying what that bank account is and how it works. And we get there and we're sitting in a room with the corporal waiting for the DA, or in this case the ADA. And he comes in and sits down with us, and he's got a folder, and he just slaps it down. He goes, okay, well, this seems like a case of child support. And I was like, excuse me? This is not child support. What are you talking about? She never had custody. He's like, well, technically, she says she was caring for him. I'm like, yeah, but she's lying. And even the corporal's just sitting there, like, rolling his eyes. So, obviously, this is not his first rodeo with this guy. And honestly, I've heard horror stories from other attorneys. They don't even want to blink at him. They don't want to deal with him at all. They will tell you to settle your case before going up against him because he's not interested in justice. He's interested in what they call a case close percentage. He wants to further his career, and he's going to use you to do it. And if you're not worth his time, he's going to drop it because you are going to affect his dismissal. There's a percentage in the police station that they say if they don't feel your case is 90% provable, they will not go after the criminal. You have to do the work, which is ridiculous. And even when you do all the work, they tell you it's not good enough. I've been there, done that. You know who gets prosecuted? Cases that hit the paper. This is good and bad. Oh, let me finish this one though. Okay, so he's sitting there with his little folder, and he's just telling us it's child support for when she supposedly took care of him, which she never did. And my stepson was sitting there with me, and he said, but I never lived with her. I never stayed with her. He's like, wait, you didn't? And then he flips open the folder. It's the first time he's looked at it. He's had this case for over a month. And he hasn't even read it. That's how much less time we were worth. She had hired an attorney. And this attorney had convinced him that she had spent all this money on him. It's words. There's no evidence. And because they're buddies, the DA was willing to look the other way. He actually said he was going to dismiss it. Until my stepson said, I never lived with her. My mother was dying. I lived with my grandmother. That's where he stayed. And then eventually came with me. The DA actually looked at the paperwork, and then he flipped the folder back and he closed it. And then he looked at us and he smiled. My stepson is crying because he's talking about his mother who just died. And he's smiling. Man, I just wanted to wipe the smile off his face. Like, how? This guy doesn't have a conscience. There's nothing about justice for him. I know. I've seen it. And he said, oh, I gotta go get a continuance. And he ran out the door. And I heard him yelling at the attorney, Booker, Booker, Booker. Because that's the guy's name. And he's like, oh, no, we're not dropping this. We're gonna do a continuance. So the fact is, he never looked at the whole paperwork. So the whole point of the preliminary was for him to walk in and throw the case out. Because he didn't want to deal with it. I was so glad when we had to come back and it was a different ADA. And that woman had a brain. Good attorney. Those are the kind of ADAs we do need. We don't need him. So, when we came back for the second round of preliminary, and the judge did hold the charges, she only wanted to give out of that $6,000 about $1,600. That's all I have. She'd also taken the mother's cremated ashes, so I said, fine. You only want to give us $1,600? Then I want the mother's ashes. So the ADA leaves. She comes back in the room with me and the corporal and my stepson. And she says, well, now she only wants to give you $1,400 and she wants to keep half the ashes. Or, no. That's not what happened at first. She said, yeah, she only wants to give you $1,400 and she wants you to find another urn. She told me that this woman had spent $600 and bought this urn, and either I pay her $600 or I can get another urn to put the ashes in. I didn't even know what to say at first, and I was just trying to process that. And I said, are you telling me that this woman stole $6,000 from this child, and I have to pay her $600 for an urn? Or else she's asking me to take the ashes out of the original urn and put her into a new one? No, I'm not doing that. And my stepson's like bawling. Now the corporal's mad. He's mad with me. And he said, for God fucking sake, tell that woman to give the fucking kid his mother back. Thank you. Look at him. He's already been suffering enough. This is ridiculous. Thank you. So the ADA said, yes, I agree. And she walks out. She comes back in. This time she's yelling, no, we're going to court. Forget that. And then she walks in. She looks at us. Now she wants half the ashes. That's what I jumped ahead. And I was like, what? She's not even related. So we went to court, and the judge held over the court's things. So the next phase of after preliminary arraignment is called arraignment. And arraignment is when attorneys exchange folders where there's discovery. So the ADA would give the defense what evidence they have to the defense so they can mount a proper defense. Basically, you're showing your cards at that point. And if you withhold anything, it's a Brady violation, and the DA can get in a lot of trouble. It's actually like a criminal offense almost. So, I get to the day before arraignment, I get a phone call from the ADA. It's a different ADA this time. It's another woman. And she said, hey, you remember how we agreed that she would give you the ashes? Well, she's willing to do that now. And so if you want to come to arraignment the next day, I will give you the ashes and the check. She will just leave you alone. I was like, you know what? Fine. I get there. Guess what? She's out of the urn. She's in a box. She was in a box. I said, what is this? Well, she says it's the ashes. I said, are you fucking real? She took them out of the urn? What is she going to use? Put it with flowers? She going to turn it into a flower pot? Oh. I about cried. And I didn't know what to do. She's handing me this check. She's saying it's coming out of the attorney's account so it won't bounce, so they know for sure. And the attorney is requiring this woman to pay him instead. And, I don't know what to do at this point. Like, I just looked at her and I said, I can't give her to the kids and this woman's mother like this. What am I supposed to tell them? This is not what we agreed upon. And she said, I'm sorry. And that was it. I had to take her ashes back to the funeral home to where she was cremated and buy another urn. And I asked the funeral director to find one that was exactly or close to like that. And he told me that the one they'd picked out originally was actually really cheap. But the one that was closest to it, because they don't have that one anymore, was $700. And I said, I don't fucking care anymore. Just, I'll write you a check. So, that's how much you mean to the courts. And the cops. You have to fight to get someone to listen to you. And at the end of the day, it's not even about justice. Sorry, that one irritates me. So, sorry, trying to bring it down. So we got the mother back. I gave it to her mother. She chose to bury her in the end. Which is okay, she's not my kid. I just wanted the family to have her back. So let's get on a different topic before I completely break down. You know, this woman wasn't even the greatest person. She was one of the ones calling the police for no reason. But it wasn't about her. It was about the children. They were suffering, knowing that her ashes were somewhere else, even if she was abusive. This family was suffering because they didn't have her. Because this woman, it wasn't even part of the family. This is reality. Let's look at the bigger criminal cases. Get off this. Bigger criminal cases. If you're in the paper, you're screwed. Whether you did it or you didn't do it, you're in the paper. As our Sharon Harrell reporter once told me, you're painting a target on your back. You're done. Because there is nobody to help you. The attorneys, they know it. They know the underhanded stuff. It is not Law and Order. I would love a Carisi. I would love that if we had a DA like that. Who is all about following the law and making sure justice is done appropriately. Not about making yourself look good. So, Law and Order is not real. Not even in the courtroom sessions. It's not real. Grand juries don't happen here. We live north of Pittsburgh. Does Pittsburgh have a grand jury? Maybe. Do they have an IAB? No. There's Steelers country. They're one of the biggest cities that's mentioned on this planet. They actually, you know why there's a lot of movies made in Pittsburgh? Because Pittsburgh won't charge the cinema people for using their city. They want the attention. They like being called, you know, the cleanest city, even though it's technically not that clean. But compared to other places, you don't see as many homeless people. They try to take care of their citizens, and their citizens try to take care of each other. However, the person in charge, they don't like them. They don't like their cops. So in Pittsburgh, it's not called IAB, it's called OIG, and I've talked to them. They are not cops. They are not employed by the government. They are a citizen group who try to just hold police accountable. They're literally just a bunch of citizens who got together to make their own agency to help other people when they're wronged by the police. I think that's very admirable. Most people don't know they can do that. They think that, you know, you go against the cops, forget it. Or you can report to somebody bigger, and then you find out too late, there is nobody to report to. You don't have anybody to report to. The last guy who got in trouble here, our DA, back in 2019, Carson Miles. The FBI are the ones who got involved with him. You know what he got? He got tried, and he was charged and tried over in Ohio because they thought, you know, Pennsylvania couldn't be objective. They were right. But Ohio gave him a slap on the wrist because of his age. He broke every code. He used the law to his own ends. And they sent him home. Ruined so many lives. And our DA is doing it again. When he does it under the radar, he twists the law. And this is why attorneys say you are painting a target on your back. There are laws in our state like strangulation and ethnic intimidation. They are very minor laws. They're minor crimes. However, if you pair them with a bigger crime, it jacks up the level. Our DA is very well aware of this. He does that. He will tack on those charges even if they're not real. All they have to do is have a cop write up what we call an affidavit of probable cause. It is one sheet of paper, back to front, sometimes not even the back. And it's one cop saying, this is what I think is true. And then he signs it. And he gives it to a judge, and a judge signs it, and then you're in prison. They don't have to present anything. It is an affidavit of probable cause for arrest. It just means they're sending a paper to a judge so they can come and get you. It might not even be true, but who's going to tell anybody? Are you? You're going to be in jail. How can you tell anybody? You know what's worse? The prison guards know it. They actually are very sympathetic to a lot of prisoners. Because they know. They know. They've seen it. These prisoners, they get their paperwork. It's like a laugh in the face. They're handed it. And then they could show the guard, look at this. And they'll say, yeah, this person had that happen to them too. Or that person had it to them too. Yeah, that DA's a dick. So, you know, you'll get some affirmation, or affirmation. Can't speak today. But are they helping you? No. Because they don't know what to do either. The press don't know what to do. You don't need proof to charge anybody with strangulation. You don't need marks around the neck. You don't need to be caught in the act. You just need somebody to accuse you of it. And criminals, real criminals, know how to do that. So if you're in a domestic situation, they already know to say the words, "You hit me, you strangled me," and you're charged. That's how easy it is. An attorney said to me, you would not believe how many people are charged with strangulation. Almost every person. You pull up a docket for a criminal offense, if they're charged with domestics, you usually find strangulation right underneath it. Why? Because if you charge them with simple assault or aggravated assault, whatever charge that is, whether it's a felony 1, a felony 2, your strangulation charge is going to match that. So if you have a misdemeanor, the strangulation charge is a misdemeanor. But if you have a felony 1, your strangulation charge is a felony 1. Now you have 2 felony 1s. How are you going to prove it? How can you prove the unprovable? You can't. It's your word against theirs. And then it becomes a popularity contest. There, once again, they know, the DAs know the jurors don't want to be there. They know the jurors want to go home. They play to their emotions. They want somebody pliable. They want somebody that they can convince their story is true over the defense's story. And sometimes truth is actually more freaky than, than fiction. So you're more likely to believe the lie the DA comes up with, or the actual criminal comes up with, than the defense attorney. Because to you, what the defense attorney is going to tell you doesn't seem real. You hear that all the time. You see it in all of the documentaries. I didn't think this could happen to me. I didn't think this was even possible. I didn't know that this situation would turn into this. I never thought that that person was capable of this. Ted Bundy still has a fan club. He's dead, with evidence against him, and they've even pulled DNA from some of the victims later on after his death to prove he was the one that did it. And yet you still have people saying, nah, he couldn't have done that. That's too many people. Or you see an old lady who has murdered children, and you say, oh, she looks like a little old lady. She doesn't look like she's capable of that. Nobody could be doing that. And unless you got hard proof or somebody on video doing it, hard. But if you didn't do it, and the DA is saying you did it, he knows or she knows what charges to tack on. And then they do the dance of the deal. Usually it's 3 times they go to you, asking for a deal. And the deals are very enticing. You have to plead guilty, but I'll let you out of jail. I'll lessen your sentence. Or I won't go after your family members. You literally have to stand in front of a judge and say that you are guilty and that you are not blackmailed into these plea deals, when you are. The DA is literally standing there saying, I offer this deal, that I would not go after their family. And in exchange, or I would drop all these charges against this family member that has nothing to do with this guy or this woman in exchange for this deal. How does that make sense? And the judge just, okay, so you weren't blackmailed? Alright, cool. And they can use your juvie history against you. So if you have a criminal charge from when you were 12, 13, 14, be prepared. You're 40 years old, you're facing courts for the first time, I'm going to use it. They're not supposed to be able to use it. That whole, that stuff's supposed to be sealed past your 18th birthday is a lie. In Pennsylvania, you actually have to request it. So if you have a juvie record and you're over the age of 18, please go file a form to have your juvie record sealed, because it is not an automatic thing. A lot of people think it is. It is not. You must file a form to request it to be sealed. It's bullcrap. Because how, as a child, are you supposed to know that? How, as an adult, are you supposed... Who tells you these things? Do you get taught this in school? No. You are taught what, just basic info. You don't hear anybody telling you this. I'm telling you this, but I'm only telling you this because I know this. And because these things were shocks to me. I couldn't believe it. A criminal charge from when you're 12 years old affects you when you're 40. How does that make any sense? And they don't just use it. When you are actually convicted, take a deal, whatever, you are given a number as to what kind of person you are. It's 1 through 5 number. In this case, I'm talking about the defense said 0 because he hadn't done anything. And frankly, he was only taking the deal because he was blackmailed into it. And then the DA says 5. And literally the judge sits there and says, let's split the baby and make it a 2. Actually, I think the DA said 4. But yeah, let's split the baby and make it a 2. He's not even looking at the case. And even the defense attorney is saying, I don't have this case in front of me. You can't use it to intensify the sentencing because it's a sentence enhancer. If they give you a number above 1, 2, even a 2, you're screwed. Your 10-year sentence is now 25. Your 8-year sentence, 4-year sentence, is now 25. Go seal your juvie records. Seal them now. I mean it. Right now. Look it up. You don't believe me? Look it up. Protect yourself. Document. You are your own advocate. You shouldn't be. And I'm sorry. But you are. Don't trust the police to do everything for you. They won't. Half of them won't even believe you. Most of them won't even believe you. And what's worse, the deal game. This Monday. Man, it feels like a week ago. This Monday I went to a hearing. I was supposed to testify for this woman because I know she didn't do anything wrong. She was not a hoarder. She's very poor. Good family. Good family. People dumped animals off at her house. Someone would ask her to hold on to them and that they would come back. They never come back. And if anybody knows, when you find a stray or some animal that's hurt and you take it in and you're looking for a shelter to take care of that animal, there are none. There's a few kill shelters, but most of them are full. The other shelters are full. The Humane Society is going to just tell you to put it back on the street. The Someone couldn't do that. Most of the animals didn't live inside. She would put food out. She just couldn't turn it back. She did everything she could. But this family that was mad at them called the Humane Society. She was charged with like 50 counts of neglect. The animals weren't in bad condition. But because she didn't take them to the vet. This woman's like almost 80. They threatened her with 5 years in jail. Hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of fines. And then told her she couldn't have the animals back that she did have in the house. It was really a handful. And she took care of them very well. Sorry. This one's still a little fresh. So, when I went into the courts Monday, I went early. First of all, it wasn't supposed to happen until Wednesday. The attorney that asked me to testify for her called me Monday morning and says the DA has changed it to right now. They do that. There's nothing you can do. You have to go when they say. So I got there earlier. She had her children with her, which I know personally. And by the way, this family has faced loss beyond anybody. If you've if you've watched my other videos, you'll hear me talk about it. This is the family of Polly Likens Jr. Okay? This is his grandmother. He was murdered and dismembered last July. His murderer's trial is this July. It's actually on his birthday. The family is sickened by that. Who wants to remember that? Anyway. Kid was 14. It's not fair. So, knowing this, that he is threatening the grandmother with prison time, I get there, she sits on the bench, she comes right up to me first, and she says, they want me to take a deal. They want me to take a deal. And I'm so tired. She says, I'm so tired of this. I'm so tired of courts. I don't want to do it anymore. And she sits on the bench, she starts crying. Her daughters are angry. They're yelling at her, don't you dare take a deal. Don't you dare. You're not guilty. And I sat down next to her. And she was still crying. She goes, I don't know what to do. She said, I just want it to be done. This has been going on. This is close to the time Polly was murdered. And the courts keep delaying, or they keep making threats. This woman is mentally just done. And I sat there with her, and I said, you do what is best for you. Because we know you didn't do it. But I get it. Because she said, I want to take the deal because I just want to be done. And I said, you do what is best for you. And she looked at me, she's still crying. She's, my daughters are gonna hate me. Because they don't want me to take it. And I said, I know they're gonna be upset. Because this is not the way justice is supposed to work. Guilty people go to jail. Innocent people get found not guilty. The DA should not have the power to blackmail you into a deal, to coerce you into a deal, so he can get a close. But you have a record. They shouldn't have the ability to say, you know, I'm offering you to go home, but if you don't take what I'm offering you, I'm going to take away your life. And you know, going to that courtroom, that DA is very savvy in what he does. He knows the right words to say. And, yeah. I said I didn't want this other person I knew to take a deal either, because I knew he wasn't guilty. But I knew the DA was threatening the family. I knew that he was worn down and he was scared for his family, not even for him. So I know he took the deal. And I'm not mad at him. I'm mad at the system. Because that's not how it's supposed to work. Even with the Polly Likens Jr. case, that murderer is so guilty. There's blood everywhere. I'm so glad there's a state officer actually involved with this, because that guy's, he knows what he's talking about. And not these shitty cops who just blow you off. He's guilty. But the DA has withheld evidence from the family. And I don't mean just evidence. I mean, like, they added the 2 extra charges, but didn't tell the family they were going to do that. At least not the dad's side. They didn't even tell him when they found the body. You know how they found out? Facebook. The news. They actually went, when they first found one of the body parts, to the lake where he was killed. And well, he wasn't killed at the lake, but he was dismembered and put around the lake. But they went there, and they pleaded with the officers, please tell us the truth, is it him? And the officer said, no, I don't know why you're here, it's a grown adult. They rushed DNA, they knew it was him within a few days. 2 weeks later, when they made the arrest of the guy who killed him, they released it to the news, and they did not call Dad. None of them knew. My grandmother called me, and she saw the news, and she goes, oh my God, it's Polly. And I was like, no. It can't be. They said it was an adult. It can't be him. And I called the family. His aunt, in particular, is close with me. She's crying. She's like, it just hit the news. We just found out. I'm like, how could they call you? She's like, I don't know. I'm sorry, I didn't think I was gonna get emotional this street, but I guess I did. um, oh my god. But, yeah. Document for yourself. Advocate for yourself. Get into therapy. I know it might sound condescending, but you need somebody in your corner. And therapists can be great for that. I don't think I'd be here without them. Because they knew too. They all know. They all know how bad the system is. They know how bad child services is. How they're overworked, underpaid, pushed to do paperwork more than actually... And to close cases. Whether that be to just throw it away, or, you know, to go after you for no reason at all. Take your kids. Good people lose their children. Bad people get to keep them. My stepkids are an example of that. Good people suffer. Bad people, they know how to manipulate. They know what to say. They know the truth is hard to believe. It's easier for them to lie. Come up with a lie that everybody expects. So, I think that's all I'm going to go over right now. If you guys have any questions, just leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer anything I can. I'm not an attorney. I have acted as my own attorney. I have advocated for myself. I have learned how to file custody paperwork, how to file protection orders. You know, and I've learned all this. Unfortunately, by experience, most of it. This woman took a deal. She's not even guilty. Her sentencing is in May. I'm gonna go with them. They're gonna discuss the deal, because you have to, you know, even if you discuss it in judges' chambers, you have to go before a judge in front of everybody, basically, and declare your guiltiness. And once again, do that whole, are you blackmailed into this? No. Yes, you are. They need to change the meaning of the word blackmail, really. Because to us, it's pretty obvious. But in the court sessions, this is legal. Make sure you're prepared. Have somebody with you. Because I'm going to tell you, it is rough going alone. And at times you'll feel alone, even when you have somebody, because they're not going through it with you. You are the one facing these things. And some things just doesn't make sense. It's not fair. Life isn't fair. This part is supposed to be... This part is supposed to be what we expect it to be. But we are still in the Salem witch trials era. We really are. It's still all about money. Some public defenders are good. Some people go into public defending on purpose just because they know that that the DA is bad and they want to help, but they get burned out so quickly. It's no wonder when they see this happen over and over It's like playing a game of chess and you're already missing the queen. How can you win? They got all the pieces and you don't. In fact, you're missing your biggest one. You know what? It's not even like they have the queen, it's like they have an extra spot and then they have a second queen. You know, the odds are always stacked against you. And that sucks. I'm sorry I got emotional. I shouldn't have to apologize for that, but I am, because I know that sometimes I sound ridiculous when I do. I'm emotionally tied to these people. I'm emotionally tied to a lot of things that have happened. I've been present in they're part of my trauma. In order for me to go to that courthouse, I have to go an hour early. So I was actually a little freaked out on Monday, like, oh crap. Because I have to mentally calm myself down being in the presence of that building. Like, I've been to the Ohio ones, they don't freak me out as much. Because I wasn't in them as much. A little bit. One in Trumbull County, anyway. But I was helping my sister, who was in a domestic situation too. And all the other the other guy just has to say, no, I didn't. And then she's crazy. And then she's the one that got punished. So I'm gonna end it here. I don't want this to be too long, not like the other videos. So I know it's still over an hour. But take what you will from this. Advocate, research. Don't just leave it. And if you need help, please try and get like a therapist or an EMDR therapist. They have resources, they know places to go, they know people, because they've been through this. They know. Most medical professionals know too. Like, literally. It's crazy. Some cops even know. You ask a cop about child services, they'll roll their eyes at you and be like, oh, that place. Because they know. They know how bad they are. They're useless. Cause more problems than they solve. So, thank y'all for sticking it out, listen to me blather again, and stay strong. You're not alone.